What's up everybody? You knew this video was coming. There's no way we can honestly ignore this. Two massive open world games, both set in feudal Japan, both releasing within a few months of each other, both promising to deliver some of the most intense samurai action we've seen in years. I'm talking about Ghost of Yotei and Assassin's Creed Shadows. Now, if you've been following gaming news at all, you know these two titles have been compared non-stop since their announcements. And honestly, it makes sense. Both game sets us back to ancient Japan. Both feature protagonists driven by revenge and justice, and both are from studios who already proven they know how to craft incredible open world experiences. Sucker Punch gave us Ghost of Tsushima, which became a cultural phenomenon and one of the best looking games on PlayStation ever. Meanwhile, Ubisoft has perfected the Assassin's Creed formula for over 2 decades now. But here's the thing, when two games occupy such similar spaces, it's impossible to not wonder which game does it better. Which game gives us the more authentic Japan? Which one gives us the better combat? Which open world will keep us exploring for hours without being bored? And most importantly, which game is actually worth your $60? That's exactly what we're going to break down today. We're deep diving into every aspect of these two games, from their settings, their open world design, to their combat system, quest structures, and overall gameplay loops. We'll look at what makes each game special, where they stumble, and ultimately which comes out on top. So grab a drink, get comfortable, and let's jump into this ultimate showdown between Assassin's Creed Shadows and Ghost of Yotei. And hey, if you end up enjoying this breakdown, consider subscribing. We're putting out deep dives like this regularly, and your support genuinely helps us out and would mean the world. Let's start what brings these two games together in the first place. It's their setting. Ancient Japan has become a popular backdrop for video games lately, and I get why. There's something deeply compelling about this era. The honor-bound samurai culture, the political intrigue, the gorgeous landscape, the architectural beauty. It's a setting that naturally lends itself to both action-packed gameplay and competitive storytelling. For Assassin's Creed Shadows, Ubisoft is close to setting their story during the Sengoku period, especially around the 1500s. This was a time of massive upheaval in Japan. The country was essentially fractured into different territories controlled by warring daimyos, and everyone was fighting for power and control. It's often called the Warring States period, and historically is one of the most dramatic, violent areas of Japan history. It's often called the Warring States period, and historically is one of the most dramatic and violent eras of Japanese history. For a franchise built around assassins, Templars, and shadowy organizations manipulating history, this period is perfect. This political chaos gives Ubisoft the freedom to weave their fictional Templar assassination conflict into historical events in a way that feels believable. What really stands out is how Shadows uses actual historical figures and locations. You're moving through recreations of real cities, castles, and you're encountering people who actually existed. The attention to architectural detail is genuinely impressive. When you're sneaking through a carefully reconstructed castle or exploring the streets of a bustling merchant town, you feel the research that went into making this world feel historically grounded. Now, Ghost of Yotei takes a different approach, and honestly, I think is quite brilliant. Instead of going from another well-known period, Sucker Punch sets their sequel in 1603 on the island of Etsu, which is present-day Hokkaido. This is shortly after the Sengoku period. But here's what makes this interesting. Etsu was essentially the frontier of Japan at this time. It was wild, lawless, and largely ignored by the central government. The indigenous people still had significance present there, and it was a place where outcasts and criminals and those running from the law could just disappear. Setting the game at Etsu gives the Sucker Punch so much creative freedom. Unlike the first game, which was deeply tied to the Mongol invasion and the real historical events, Yotei gets to explore Japan in the transition place where the traditional samurai honor codes don't hold as much weight because the central authority was weak. It's a land where protagonist Atsu can operate outside the normal social structures. That lawless, forgotten quality of Itsu makes it the perfect stage for a revolutionary story about revenge from someone who's been cast out and trying to forge their own path. Visually, both games are absolutely nail it on the hill for their aesthetics, repetitive time periods. Shadow gives us that iconic image of feudal Japan during its most chaotic era. Dense bamboo forests, misty mountains, traditional villages with tattered roofs, and imposing castles perched on hilltops. The game weather system is particularly impressive with dynamic season that changes the landscape dramatically. Watching cherry blossoms fall during the spring or seeing the world blanketed in snow during the winter generally never gets old. Yotei, on the other hand, embraces a significantly different color palette. Etsu feels wilder and more untamed. The environments are less manicured and more rugged. You've got vast plains, volcanic landscapes, and thick forests and coastlines that feels isolated and dangerous. Sucker Punch brought back those gorgeous somatic filters that play homage to classic samurai feels, directed by Akira Kurosawa. The black and white Kosara mode returns and honestly playing through certain sequences with that filter on is an experience itself that everyone needs to try out. So which is the better setting? That's a generally tough call to make. Shadows gives you that grand, historic, epic feeling. You're playing through a version of Japan that feels most people are familiar with from history books and samurai movies. There's something powerful about walking through locations that you know actually existed in that time period and meeting historical figures brought to life. But Yotei's choice to go for something less explored gives it a different type of appeal. It feels fresher, more mysterious. You're not just retreading familiar ground, you're exploring a part of Japan that already gets spotlight in the media, and that sense of discovery is intoxicating. I'd call this category a tie, honestly. Both games uses their settings brilliantly to tell stories that they want to tell. Both are stunningly realized. It really comes down to personal preference. Do you want an epic historical drama or do you want a wild frontier adventure? Either way, you're in for something special with both games. Now let's
take down his castle, gale after gale. The samurai lord defied the wind. Decorating his castle with wind chimes, he transformed the punishing storm into a haunting melody.
Let's talk about the open world themselves, because this is where things really start to get interesting. Both games give you massive maps to explore, but they approach the world design in fundamentally different ways. Assassin's Creed Shadows deliver what you'd expect from a modern Ubisoft open world, but it's redefined. The map is huge and dense with activities. Everywhere you turn, there's something new to do. You got fortresses to infiltrate, enemy camps to clear, collectibles scattered across the landscape, mysteries to solve, and side quests constantly popping up. The engine does an amazing job making this world feel alive. NPCs goes about their daily routines, weather system affect gameplay, and their level of detail in the environment is generally impressive. One thing that Shadow does really well is the exploration mode. Instead of just marking exact locations on your map, the game gives you general areas to search, and you actually have to investigate what you're looking for. It's a system Ubisoft introduced back in Origins, and it works beautifully here. When you're hunting down a specific target or looking for a hidden shrine, you're using environmental clues and your own observation skills rather than just following a waypoint. It makes exploration feel way more engaging and less like you're just checking boxes off a list. Visually, Shadows is a technical showcase. As the first truly current gen Assassin's Creed game, it takes full advantage of the hardware. The lighting is phenomenal, the draw distances are massive, and the environmental variety keeps everything visually interesting as you move across the map. From sun-dampened forests paths to fog-shrouded mountain peaks to vibrant market districts, the game constantly delivers gorgeous vistas. But here's where Assassin's Creed Shadows really starts to show some cracks. Despite all the visual beauty and the sheer amount of content, the activities themselves get super repetitive. You're often going to do the same type of tasks over and over and over again. Clear this camp, find this collectible, assassinate this target. The game tries to dress up these activities with different type of content in the story, but mechanically you're repeating similar actions frequently. There's also the knowledge rank system, which gates certain content behind your level. You might find interesting quests, but you can't actually do it until you've grounded your way through enough activities to raise your knowledge rank. It creates a frustrating loop where you're forced to engage with the repetitive content just to access stuff you actually are interested in doing. Ghost of Yotei, on the other hand, approaches the open world significantly different, and honestly, this is where it really shines. Yes, the visuals are on par with Assassin's Creed Shadows. The game is absolutely stunning with incredible use of color and lighting. The way the Sucker Punch captures the atmosphere of different timing of day is breathtaking, but where Yotei really excels is how it communicates with the player itself. The guiding wind system from the first game returns and is still brilliant as ever. Instead of following a GPS line on your minimap, the wind itself guides you towards your objective. It's such a simple idea, but it keeps your eye on the world rather than the UI elements. You're watching grass bend, leaves scatter, and your character's clothing flutter, all pointing you in the right direction. It's immersive in a way traditional waypoint systems simply just aren't. But Yotei takes this even further. Birds will fly over your head and lead you to your points of interest. Fox will appear and guide you to other shrines. Animals and environmental clues will constantly give you conversation as a player, making the world feel genuinely alive and responsive to you. I remember one moment while I was riding through a forest, not really going anywhere specific, where a deer just appeared out of nowhere on the path ahead. I followed it on a whim and it led me to this hidden hot spring with a beautiful vista that I actually had to screenshot. No quest marker, no checklist, just organic discovery. The map discovery system is another stroke of genius on itself. Instead of climbing towers to reveal the map, you can actually purchase smaller local maps from vendors. These maps will show you landmark or locations, but not where it is on your mini map itself. You have to actually match the drawing to the real location by exploring it. It turns the map completion into a real treasure hunt rather than just a checklist, and I found myself genuinely excited every time that I successfully located one of these spots. Quest structure in Yotei feels actually more organic. Important NPCs will actually find you at your campsite. Side quests emerge naturally from exploration rather than just being dumped onto you all at once. The clue card system for tracking quests is beautifully represented, making managing multiple objectives feel like you're actually keeping notes as you're a wandering warrior rather than just scrolling through a menu. Where Shadow tries to overwhelm you with quantity, Yotei focuses on quality and organic discovery. Every activity feels purposeful. Every location you discover has a reason to exist beyond just being a map icon to check off. The world itself just isn't a playground filtered with busy work. It's a place where it invites you to explore and rewards that exploration with meaningfulness. I also have to mention here the DualSense integration on the PS5 because it generally elevates the experience. When Asu paints scenes from her journey, you're using the touchpad to mimic brushstrokes. When you're forging equipment or cooking, the haptic feedback makes the activity feel tactical and satisfying. Even horseback riding has a subtle feedback that makes you feel more connected to your mount. These might sound like small details, but they actually add up to create an experience that feels genuinely immersive. On the open world front, Ghost of Yotei takes the win by a landslide, but both games visually are spectacular. Both Yotei's approach to the world design is more thoughtful and immersed, and ultimately more engaging over long play sessions. Shadows gives you more stuff to do, but Yotei gives you more reasons to care about why you're doing it.
A boundless river that begins as a stream. One warrior.
Let's move on to quest design because this is where philosophical differences between the two games really become apparent. Both titles offer main story campaigns and a wealth of side content, but they handle this content very differently. Assassin's Creed Shadows structures itself around a mission board system. As you explore the world, you unlock various quest lines that appear on this board, organized by the type and difficulty. It's a clean and efficient way to merge the huge amount of content the game throws at you. You've got assassination contracts, investigation mission, alliance quests, and various other activities all neatly organized into one place. The main story follows dual protagonists, Naoe the shinobi assassin and Yasuke the legendary African samurai. The campaign weaves between these two characters, each bringing different gameplay styles and perspective to the narrative. Naoe missions tend to focus on stealth, infiltration, and precision kills. Yasuke missions are more about direct combat and using his stats as a samurai to navigate social situations that Naoe can't. The writing in Shadows is solid, though it follows the familiar Assassin's Creed formula. There's the overarching Templar Assassin's Creed conflict, historical figures who serve as quest givers, and allies and narratives that ties to balance fictional elements with historical events. It's well executed, yes, but if you play recent Assassin's Creed games, you thoroughly know what to expect here. Where Shadow stumbles a bit is the quest variety. Despite the game's huge amount of content, many missions feel similar and repetitive. You're frequently tasked with tracking down a target, infiltrating a location, gathering that intel, and either assassinating someone or recovering an item. The game tries to vary these missions with different contents and setting, but the core loop doesn't change much at all. The level gating that I mentioned earlier also affects the environment. There's a questline about investigating yokai rumors that's genuinely interesting, with each target having interesting backstories and mysteries to unravel. But progressing through it requires maintaining a certain knowledge rank, which means you're periodically forced to stop engaging with the content you're invested in and to grind through other activities. It breaks the narrative flow in frustrating ways. Ghost of Yotei takes a completely different approach to quest design and is one of the game's greatest strengths overall. Rather than overwhelming you with missions all at once, Yotei lets the world naturally guide you towards new stories. You might be riding through a region when smoke from a battle arises in the distance. Investigating leads you to a village under attack, and helping the villagers open up quest lines that explore the struggles under bandit control. The clue card system deserves special mention here. Instead of a traditional quest log, Atsu keeps note cards with hand-drawn illustrations and written clues about each tale she's pursuing. Opening this journal and flipping through these cards feels immersive and personal. You're not just managing quest data, you're looking through your character's actual notes and deciding what to investigate next. What really sets Yotei apart is the quality and variety of the side content. And yes, there are plenty of combat focused missions where you're helping out people fight off bandits or taking down corrupt officials, but there's more quieter and more introspective quests that explore Atsu's character and worldview. You might spend a mission helping a struggling artist find inspiration, or investigating a mystery about a missing family that has no combat in that mystery at all. These are the quieter moments that gives Atsu depth and making her feel like a real person rather than just an active vehicle. She's not just a killing machine. She's someone that's processing trauma, questioning her path, and trying to figure out what justice actually means in a lawless land. The writing in these side quests is generally excellent, with strong character work and emotional beats that land efficiently. The main story also benefits from this approach as well. Rather than just front-loading you with information and objectives, Yotei lets the narrative world unfold organically. You're hunting the Yotei Six, the people responsible for the tragedy that sets Atsu on this path, but along the way you're encountering other characters whose story intersect with yours in meaningful ways. The pacing feels natural rather than mechanical. I also appreciate that Yotei doesn't artificially gate content behind boring level requirements. If you find something, you can engage with it. The game trusts you to explore at your own pace, tackling challenges as you feel ready. This creates a much more fluid, player-driven experience. From a pure quest design perspective, Ghost of Yotei wins decisively. Shadows has some strong content and some generally good storylines, but it's working within the constraints of the Ubisoft world formula. Yotei breaks from that formula and create something that feels more authored and more personal and more respectful of your time as a player.
Who are you?
Now we're getting to what the heart that makes both of these games tick: combat. Both Ghost of Yotei and Assassin's Creed Shadows are action games at their core, and both need to nail the feeling of being a deadly warrior in feudal Japan on its head. Let's break down how each game approaches combat and which one delivers the more satisfying experience. Assassin's Creed Shadow uses the RPG-like combat system that the series adopted in Assassin's Creed Origins. You got light attacks, heavy attacks, parries, dodges, special abilities that unlock as you progress. The twist here is that you're switching between two different protagonists with distinct fighting styles. Play as Naoe is all about precision and speed. She's quick with her katana, she can chain together rapid strikes, excels in picking enemies apart one by one. Her dagger allows for brutal close range kills, and her kurashami lets her pull enemies out of positions or yank them off ledges. She's fragile compared to Yasuke, so you need to be more tactical, using perfect dodges and parries to create openings. Then you got Yasuke. He's an entirely different experience altogether. This guy is a powerhouse. His combat styles revolves around overwhelming force and aggression. With a katana in hand, he's got an incredible reach and he hits like a Mack truck. But the switch to a katana club and he becomes a force in nature, smashing through enemy defenses and sending opponents flying. His special tempo system adds a rhythmic element to the combat where perfectly timed attacks build momentum for each devastating finisher. The ability to switch between these two combat styles keeps Shadow's combat fresh. Different missions and encounters designed around their respective strengths, and figuring out the optimal approach for each situation is so satisfying. The game also deserves credit for making both characters feel powerful and fun to control, even though they play completely differently. The combat encounters in Shadow can be pretty intense, especially on higher difficulties. Groups of enemies attack simultaneously, and you need to manage multiple threats while watching out for unblockable attacks and positioning yourself to avoid being surrounded. The game gives you a lot of tools to work with: smoke bombs, throwing knives, and a variety of weapons with different movesets and character abilities that can turn the tide of battle. However, there are some issues. The lock-on system can get confused in large group fights, sometimes targeting enemies behind you when you're trying to focus on a closer threat. Hit detection occasionally feels off with attacks, seemingly connecting but not registering any damage. And while the combat looks impressive, it doesn't have the precision or weight that really elevates the action game combat to the next level. Now let's talk about Ghost of Yotei's combat, because this is where Sucker Punch really outdid themselves. The foundation is similar to Ghost of Tsushima, but everything has been refined and expanded in ways that are meaningful. Asu is a mercenary trained to fight and survive in the harshest conditions, and her combat style reflects that. She's proficient with multiple weapon types: katana, dual blade, spears, axes, and many more. But here's where Yotei gets interesting. Mid-combat, you can seamlessly switch between these weapons, and each one has distinct properties of movesets that are effective against different enemy types. Fighting a heavy armored enemy, switch to a weapon to break through their defense. Surrounded by fast moving opponents, dual blades gives you the speed and range to keep them at bay. The game consistently encourages you to adapt your loadout on the fly, and mastering this weapon switching system is incredibly satisfying to pull off. But Ghost of Yotei doesn't just stop there. You can pick up enemy weapons during combat and use them temporarily. Even better, you can throw these weapons at a distant enemy for quick damage or interruption dangerous attacks. This creates that emergent moment where you're disarming an opponent, throwing the spear at the archer on top of a roof, and then switching to your dual blades to deal with the enemies closing around you. It feels dynamic and improvisational in ways that Shadow's more structured combat doesn't just quite match. The stance system from Ghost of Tsushima returns, but it's expanded. Different enemy types require different approaches, and learning to read your opponents and adapt to your style is crucial. But Yotei adds new ghost weapons and special abilities that can completely change how enemy encounters play out. Smoke bombs for repositioning, explosive kunai for crowd control, a grappling hook for aerial attack, and various other tools that let you approach fights with creativity. What really elevates Yotei combat is the weight and the feedback. Every hit feels impactful. The DualSense haptics on the PS5 gives you tactical feedback for your sword clashes, perfect parries, and killing blows. The sound design is incredible, with the clash of steel and the environmental audio creating this visceral soundscape, and the animations are absolutely gorgeous, with Atsu moving with fluid grace that makes even difficult encounters look like a deadly dance. Enemy AI in Yotei is also incredibly smarter than most open world action games. Enemies coordinate their attacks and flank you aggressively and adapts to your tactics. If you keep using the same approach, they'll start countering it. They'll even start calling for reinforcements if they're losing, or retreat to regroup if you're overwhelming them. This makes the combat feels less scripted and more reactive. The difficulty balance is also more finely tuned. Yotei combat is challenging without being unfair. Even if you're on normal difficulty, you can't just butt mash your way through encounters. You need to learn enemy patterns, manage your positioning, and use your tools effectively. But the game gives you enough options that when you die, you feel like you made a mistake rather than the game cheating you. On the pure combat front, Ghost of Yotei takes the win ultimately. Shadows has a satisfying combat that does the job, but Yotei's system has more depth, better feel, and more room for player expression. Once you master Ghost of Yotei's combat, encounters becomes these beautiful, brilliant ballads where you're constantly flowing between weapons and tools to handle whatever the game throws at you.
Be an extension of your spirit. Remember, justice is for.
And of course, combat is only half the equation here. Both of these games emphasize stealth as well, and in Assassin's Creed's case is literally in the name. So let's examine how each game handles the sneaky approach to problem solving. Assassin's Creed Shadow represents a genuine evolution for the stealth franchise. Naue is built specifically for this playstyle, with abilities and tools that make her one of the most capable assassins in the series. The environmental stealth options are expansive. You can hide in tall grass, blend into crowds, use shadows to remain unseen, hide in buildings and peek through windows, and use your grappling hook to access rooftops and vantage points. The level design of Assassin's Creed Shadows is generally impressive when it comes to supporting stealth for gameplay. Fortresses and enemy camps are designed with multiple entry points, various pathways at different elevations, and enough environmental hassle that you can often complete entire sections without directly engaging with enemies. You might poison a food supply to create a distraction, sabotage alarms to prevent reinforcements, or use environments to create accidents to eliminate targets. Oopsie. Naue toolset supports this playstyle beautifully. Her Kirishigama lets her manipulate enemy positions, pulling guards away from their posts and into hiding spots where you can eliminate them quietly. Throwing knives lets you take out targets from range or destroy light sources to create more shadows to hide in. And her various gadgets gives you the options for both lethal and non-lethal approaches. The game's sound designs and enemy awareness systems are well implemented. Guards have realistic sightlines and hearing ranges. You need to actually pay attention to patrol patterns and create openings that rather than just running from hiding spots to hiding spots. On higher difficulties, enemies are generally alert, and getting spotting often means dealing with reinforcements in a much harder fight. Where Shadows falter slightly is that stealth encounters can start to feel samey after a while. You're using the same tactic repeatedly. Scout the area, mark the targets, eliminate the guards on the property, work your way through the objective. It's executed well, yeah, but it's also the same stealth formula in Assassin's Creed that we've been using for years. Ghost of Yotei, on the other hand, approaches stealth differently, and honestly though, is less refined than Assassin's Creed Shadows in this specific area. Asu's stealth abilities are enhanced compared to Jin in the first game, but the core stealth system is more straightforward. You got tall grass for hiding, the ability to throw objects to distract guards, assassination techniques for taking down enemies quietly, and some ghost weapons like smoke bombs for repositioning. The game doesn't have Shadow's level of stealth depth. You can't blend into crowds, there's no complex social system, and there's no environmental options that are more limited. Asu is fundamentally more a warrior than assassin, and the stealth feels like one tool in her arsenal rather than a fully developed parallel playstyle. With that being said, Yotei does have some interesting stealth mechanics. The sure game returns, letting you lure enemies to specific positions. You can use animals to create distractions, and there are certain ghost techniques that let you chain stealth kills or vanish for repositioning if you get spotted. But it's clear the Sucker Punch designed for Yotei, with the expectation that players would frequently be switching between stealth and open world combat rather than ghosting an entire area section. On the pure stealth combat front, Assassin's Creed Shadow decisively wins. It's simply more developed with deeper system and better level design for stealth and more tools for supporting that playstyle. If you love pure stealth gameplay, Shadows delivered a more complete experience. However, as a caveat here, Yotei combat is more good that this less developed stealth system doesn't feel that much of a loss. The game is designed around the flow between stealth, combat, and exploration, and that flow works beautifully. Shadows sometimes feel like it's trying to be two different games at once, a stealth game and an action RPG, and those elements don't always mesh smoothly.
Look there!
At my signal, flank the enemy here.
Before we get to the final thought, let's just briefly talk about the technical performances of both games, because this is where it truly matters, especially in open world titles where you've been spending dozens of hours in these worlds. Assassin's Creed Shadows is a technical showcase when running well. The game is gorgeous with incredible detail in environments and character models. The lighting engine is phenomenal altogether, creating stunning atmospheric effects. Weather and time of day changes are dynamic and beautiful. As a cross-generation title that's clearly built for current gen hardware, it pushes visual boundaries in impressive ways. However, Shadows launched with some technical issues. Frame rate drops in busy areas, occasional texture pop-ins, and some additional animation glitches and rare frustrating crashes. Ubisoft has been patching up these issues and the game is in a way better shape now than at launch, but it's worth noting that the technical experience hasn't always been flawless. Ghost of Yotei, as a PlayStation 5 exclusive, has an advantage of being built specifically for one hardware configuration, and it shows. The game runs smoothly, maintaining a steady frame rate even in intense combat encounters or traversing through detailed environments. Load times are nearly non-existent thanks to the PS5 SSID architecture. Visually, Yotei is stunning. Sucker Punch art direction maintains top tier with incredible use of color, lighting, and environmental detail. The DuraCell's integration I mentioned earlier generally enhances the experience in ways that aren't just gimmicks. The haptic feedback during combat, the adaptive trigger when drawing your bow, the subtle vibration as you ride through different terrain types, all of these elements combine to create a more immersive experience. From a pure technical standpoint, Ghost of Yotei feels more polished. It's the advantage of being a first-party exclusive optimized for the specific hardware versus a multi-platform release trying to scale across different systems. So after everything we discussed, which game actually wins the showdown? Let's be clear, both Ghost of Yotei and Assassin's Creed Shadows are excellent games. If you love open world games set in feudal Japan, you owe it to yourself to play both of these titles. They each offer unique experiences that justify their existence. Assassin's Creed Shadow delivers the epic historical drama and stealth gameplay that fans of the franchise love. It gives you two distinct protagonists with different playstyles, a massive open world filled with content, and a narrative that weaves fictional elements with real history. If you want the grand, sweeping experience of exploring historical Japan during this most turbulent period, Shadows absolutely delivered that. But if I'm being completely honest here, Ghost of Yotei is the more complete, polished, and satisfying experience overall. And here's why. Yotei has clarity of a vision that Shadows sometimes lack. Every system in the game feels like it's designed to support an interconnected whole rather than just being borrowed from established formulas. The open world design encourages organic exploration rather than just checklist completion. The combat has a genuine depth and it feels that makes every encounter engaging. The quest design respects your time and intelligence as a player, and the technical execution is basically flawless. And more importantly, Yotei feels like it's raising the bar for the open world genre that the games in the future can be. It's taking lessons from countless other games in this genre and redefining them to create something that feels seamlessly familiar and fresh. It proves that you don't need to overwhelm players with quality to create a compelling open world experience. Quality, intention, and cohesion matters more. Shadows is very good at working within the constraints of a massive franchise and a formula that's been redefined over many entries. Yotei is a studio at the top of their game, building on previous success and pushing themselves to do better. So the winner here in this ultimate showdown is Ghost of Yotei has to take it. Not by a landslide, but decisively. It's the game that will likely have more lasting impact on the genre, the game that respects your time more, and the game that delivers a more cohesive and satisfying experience from beginning to end. With that being said, both games are fantastic. I would just personally go with Ghost of Yotei just for more enjoyment, but Assassin's Creed Shadows is up there with par as well. But that was my review and my showdown of both of these games. Let me know what you think in the comments. I would love to read them and respond back to them. But if you enjoyed this, hit that like and subscribe button. If you want to catch me playing either of these titles, link is in the description for my Twitch channel. But until next time, stay safe, stay smart, and stay alpha.